Just imagine if a monument could reveal a coded map. It could be found and deciphered and uncover a national treasure. That its message could jumpstart our economy for generations of true prosperity. Feed the hungry. Bring families back together owning their own land without a huge mortgage. And setting back tyrants 100 years. Where is this coded map? This monument, is it buried beneath the cathedral in New York City or beneath the lake in Wisconsin? No. We have found such a coded map, a monument, a national treasure, sitting prominently on a forgotten hill surrounded by old homes in America's hometown, Plymouth, Massachusetts. It was here that 19th century Americans worked for nearly 70 years, for decades, to build this largest granite monument in America. It is called the National Monument to the Forefathers. It was built so future generations would not forget the God-given strategy, which was to be found in the one true God, who brought liberty to these fine shores. Consider the importance of major monuments in history. From earliest recorded history, monuments have been roadmaps, keys to unlocking the treasures of civilization. And that's why the enemies of liberty want to tear down monuments. Hello, it's John Bona with the Story of Liberty. The ancient monuments of the world give us a link to the treasure most revered in civilization after civilization. Take Egypt, for example, devoted the full energy of its empire to building pyramids to show what was treasured most. In the case of Egypt, these pyramids still standing today show us what the Egyptians were taught to treasure: a tomb for their pharaoh after his journey after death. Hundreds of thousands of men, they gave their whole brief life to dragging 12-ton stones, hundreds of miles, and piling them up in the desert for one man after he died. But there is another type of monument that is the keeper of the past, the key that can unlock the hopes for future generations. These monuments were inaugurated by the ancient Hebrews. Their God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, He told them when they entered the Promised Land to build a memorial of remembrance, so that when their grandchildren saw the monument many years later, and they ask, "What are these pile of stones?" the fathers could tell them all about the Ark of the Covenant and how the waters parted, allowing millions of Hebrews to enter the Promised Land on dry ground. After the people crossed on dry ground, God told Joshua to send a representative of each of the 12 tribes back into the dry river and bring out 12 stones and build a monument on Mount Gilgal. This monument provided a code so that if the grandchildren ever forgot to tell the story of God's power, they could remember their true treasure, which was to be found in the one true God, who parted the Jordan River so their fathers could enter the Promised Land. We, like the ancient Hebrews, have lost our way. But like these ancient people, we need the landmarks of our fathers to point our way back to God. The story of America's national treasure, it starts with a small shipload of families known as the Pilgrims. They set foot in New England on a rock in what today is called Plymouth, Massachusetts. This small group of families knew the unchanging, proven strategy for building a free and prosperous nation. They had the treasure of America's future greatness, not in chests of gold, nor in the power of armies, but inside their chests, in their very soul. It's interesting that the same year our Constitution was ratified, a powerful rainstorm, it poured into the forgotten little village of Plymouth. On Cobb's Hill, just above Plymouth Rock, exploded the ancient remains, the bones, of the first settlers who had died and were buried in a common grave in the first winter of 1620. When the people in the village saw the bones of the pilgrims, they remembered and they repented. Like the ancient Hebrews, they decided to build a memorial that stands boldly in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Many more people have been freed and brought out of poverty and despair by the landing of these pilgrims than any other group of people. The more I study this subject, the more I believe that the story of our God-given rights is the missing link to revive our nation again. The story of liberty, it reaches its crescendo in America with the Mayflower Compact and the landing of the Pilgrim Fathers almost 400 years ago as we get ready to celebrate the 400th anniversary. But the story began in Nazareth, where the author of liberty, Jesus Christ, he gave his first sermon to his home synagogue. The story is detailed in Luke chapter 4. You could read it. He opened the scroll to Isaiah 61, and he read the messianic prophecy of the purpose of his coming. He detailed that he came to heal the brokenhearted, the blind, and to preach the gospel to the poor. But when he came to the subject of liberty, he said he came to set the captives free. And then he repeated it a second time, saying he came to set those that were in bondage free. When he finished reading that passage, Jesus sat down and he told the men that this prophecy had been fulfilled in their very midst. The liberation of the world began that day, and Jesus unleashed, through this loving message of redemption, power and the principles that would bring liberty to America and the nations. So we are standing for the crown rights of King Jesus in every institution. But how do we get back on track? How do we find a solution so we don't lose our liberty? Well, our forefathers had the foresight, and they left us a roadmap. And they built the largest granite monument in America's hometown, Plymouth. So we would not forget this proven strategy that created a path to lead us to a treasure that founded the richest, freest nation ever known to mankind. And how do we recreate this miracle again? Well, the message of the monument shows us clearly. The national monument to our forefathers is a Christian monument. The words inscribed on it restore our faith in God, their courage to persevere, to advance the cause of liberty, to train their children. They saw themselves as a people created for a purpose, that God had placed them upon the world stage to accomplish certain tasks. Christ led them to do monumental things. And so we ask ourselves, why did they have this view? They knew they were a new link being forged in the chain of liberty on that tiny Mayflower ship as it was tossed by the storms on the Atlantic Ocean. God bless you, and thank you for joining us at the Story of Liberty.